Hi, I'm Femi OK and you're in the stream. Today, gender flipping. Can poking fun at gender stereotypes combat everyday sexism? Oh, it's good to be back from my vacation. The woman who completes me, of course, our digital producer, Malika Bilal.
It's good to have you back, Femi.
Yay! So, gender flipping.
Yes.
What is our community saying about it?
They like it. People admit to enjoying it and wonder what it says about society. One person in particular tweeted us and wondering if this is going to have any change on society.
Right.
She tweets, most gender flips are comical and at most thought-provoking, but they haven't changed much in reality. So we'll use today's show to find out whether or not they have an effect. Tweet us your thoughts with hashtag AJStream.
So that's one thought, that's just one of our community, but this is your conversation. So go to our Facebook page, and that's at facebook.com/AJStream, and there you will see that 191,000 people have liked us. You can add a few more thousand if you like. Scroll down here, you can see our stories, you can add your comments, and here are some of the hashtags that our community is following. Semi-nude women advertising almost everything is so common in Western media that the shock value has totally worn off. But place a man in the same position and you may just look twice. Gender flipping is a popular meme and a powerful tool exposing gender stereotypes. By flipping the traditional gender roles, the line between stereotypes and sexism, well, it becomes harder to ignore. So can gender flipping change sexist views and behaviour, or is it just a joke? With us to help talk about this, we have in Sydney, Nick Boscher and Christian Van Vuuren. They're Australian comedians better known as the Bondi Hipsters. Good morning. In Istanbul, French actress Marie-Laure Van Consen, who played a lead role in the viral short film Oppressed Majority. In San Francisco, Imran Sadiki is Director of Communications for the Representation Project, which is working to expose injustices created by gender stereotypes. And in Los Angeles, we have Jatindra Sardev. He's a brand marketing expert who has worked with well-known clients like Jennifer Lopez, American Express and Dove Soap. So it's great to have you all here in the stream. Let me start back here on my computer. I did tell you what gender flipping is, but here's a fantastic example. Here is Christian from the Bondi Hipsters. Here is Miranda, the well-known supermodel. It's hard to tell them apart. Christian, what were you doing in that picture? What's the point?
Look, there's, that shoot kind of came out, and a few days later we thought it'd be interesting to take the same shoot and stick a hairy man in it and just see what occurred when we did that.
Right.
But I think part of that was, there were also some really sexualized quotes involved in the interview around, talking about joining the Mile High Club and masturbating on a plane and, having, kind of conversations around bisexuality and being curious in women. And so I thought that we thought that was also interesting when you have a man that is quoted in a magazine type situation as being bi-curious and interested in men and, masturbating on public transport. It all of a sudden becomes a very different thing, and it's not something that we're used to kind of reading.
It's not sexy, like it's more, you're
Weird.
more of a pest.
Yeah, it feels a bit pesty.
Yeah.
So take us to that shoot, Christian. How did it feel to actually be an object or a sex object, or were you laughing your head off? Were you taking it seriously?
We were laughing a lot between shots. We did, part of it was like to see how much we could get the shots the same, like down to the finger positioning and the kind of look in the eye and the trying to kind of have that post-coital look or like a supple kind of glaze over the eyes, and I don't know, like it was a bit of fun for us while we were doing it.
So
Yeah.
Imran, I can tell that Christian and Nick are kind of having fun with this, but is there something that takes us beyond the fun? Is there where we take two comedians and they make fun of something that happens in magazines and men magazines around the world? What's that saying from your point of view?
Well, you know, I think you mentioned it in the introduction here. These kinds of images of women are so common that they become kind of the norm. And it's not that necessarily that, you know, images of women which are hypersexualized are necessarily, you know, completely wrong. It's only that you don't realize how just normalized it is to see that when that's the only thing that we see, or the main way that we learn to look at women. And so it's important that by using humor in this way, we call attention to the fact that, you know, maybe we should see images of women, particularly in men's magazines, you know, in magazines that are intended for men. Maybe it's time we started to see images of women in different positions, you know, in different situations. Maybe images of women which showed them doing things beyond just using their youth, beauty, and sexuality. And so I think this kind of satire is important. It makes us realize that women are more than objects, they're human, you know, and that by putting men in that position, we create empathy and we create a feeling of connection to those women in those positions. So it's funny,
right.
But it's also, I think it's important because it creates, without empathy, I think we lose, we forget that these women are people and that they're not just objects.
And, you know, Imran, it's interesting because you mentioned creating that feeling of empathy. So Marie Lorna, we have a tweet here from Luiz, and he picks up on that theme, but he says that it's sad that we often have to experience the other side of the coin to even accept that this exists. And by this, he means what some call or see as a discrepancy in the way that women and men are shown in the media. So you worked on a film exposing that very thing, a gender flip in the opposite way. Tell us your thoughts on whether or not this is the best way to expose that discrepancy.
I think it is, because I tried quite a lot of time to explain, for instance, my father, how I could feel in the street, and he keeps saying, "Oh, it's okay, boys will be boys, don't worry." And then once he'd seen the film, he took a minute. I saw in his eyes that he took a minute, and it made a point because it changed the perspective. I don't know if it will change totally his point of view because now he's quite old, but it made a point that words don't. It's more efficient, and the tweet said it is sad that we have to go to that point to experience the other point of view. I don't know if it's sad or not, but it works, I think.
Right. So Marie Lorna, let me share with people who haven't seen The Oppressed Majority, you can actually find it on YouTube, so it's really easy to watch. It's a French film, and it kind of takes the world and flips it upside down. So men are doing what women normally do and women do what men normally do. So the hubby dropped the kid off at nursery, and then he came across a gang of women who insulted him and said, "Hey, you look cute today." And he walks along, and then a gang of women then attack him. He's assaulted, taken to a prison, or taken to a police officer. Police officer is a woman, doesn't take him very seriously. Then his wife comes from the office to pick him up, and then he has a breakdown. So again, we've reversed the male roles into the female roles, and this is the point where he's going home after his assault with his wife. Have a listen to this.
Tu dis rien, Marion?
Tu me fais marrer avec tes discours là, de chien de garde. T'as vu comment t'es habillée? Comme un petit allumeur, voilà. Ta chemisette là, tes tongs, ton Bermuda au ras du genou.
Viens péter les plombs, je m'habille comme je veux.
Mais t'étonnes pas qu'on vienne t'emmerder alors.
Mais qu'est-ce qu'il faut que je fasse, me mettre une cagoule?
J'ai pas envie de polémiquer là, je suis fatiguée.
Marion, qu'est-ce que tu fais? Marion!
Chercher la bagnole, ça va me détendre.
So, this is all getting very serious. Jatindra, you're a brand marketing expert, so a lot of advertising, it's very tongue-in-cheek, it's not particularly serious. What do you make of all of these films and projects where they're trying to flip gender stereotypes, making a serious point?
Well, I think the objective, you know, seems to be very good. Ultimately, it's about provoking thought, and it's about getting people to think about things from different perspectives. So I think anything that achieves that, whether it's gender flipping initiatives or any other form of artistry, is a good thing. You know, it's good to have those multitude of different perspectives, and it's good to empathize. I think that as a brand marketer in particular, we're constantly trying to put ourselves into the seats of our audiences in order to truly understand them and understand what makes them tick, and what will actually make them move to think differently and to behave differently. So I'm a big fan of any sort of initiative that will help push that forward.
So you know what Nick and Christian brought up, where they were saying that they're surrounded by images of women doing things that if men did them, it would be absolutely outrageous. So why, when we're talking about ads in the media, are these images still out there? Why do we not have a more equal way of looking at men and women? Is it because sex sells?
Well, I think there's certainly a historical part to it. I think it's also essentially, how we're depicting in the media, at least, or in advertising, we are trying to depict a particular type of brand promise. And the best way to activate and then bring that promise or that aspirational ideal to life can certainly be by using women who are considered to be stereotypically beautiful within the marketplace.
Give me an example of this. Give us an example where we can all go, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so let's think about Victoria's Secret as a brand, for example.
Right, lingerie.
Victoria's Secret, the lingerie brand, yeah absolutely. Victoria's Secret is known to use traditionally stereotypically beautiful women in their advertising, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's a particular type of brand promise that they are trying to sell.
So is your promise that you'll look as beautiful as Miranda, and you're going to have a flat tummy and thighs that you can have a gap in and all of that? That's the promise, right, with that lingerie?
I think it's bigger than that. It's an aspirational promise. We see that a lot with luxury brands in particular. So sometimes it's okay to have an image which is really not that attainable. Sometimes consumers like that.
So we're buying the unobtainable. Okay, Nick, I can tell you want to jump in here. Go ahead, Nick.
Oh no, I was just had a thought. I think all human beings are we're aesthetes, so we gravitate to that which is beautiful. But often in the media, there's a blurred line between what is beautiful and objectively wow, that's beautiful, and then also one's personal aspirations and goals and so on and so forth. And I think where that's muddy, it causes awkwardness and confusion.
I also think there's this thing where it's you can go that this sells or that sells, but eventually at some point we have to go what is good for humanity as well. Someone needs to go although this is going to help us reach our target this month, there's a lot of things that maybe corporations or companies, as soon as they have a set of shareholders, don't think about. Is this actually good for mankind and human beings?
It's interesting that we've taken this conversation to advertising, because people online are saying that it is more than just gender flipping. Something has to happen after that. So Lumkila on Twitter says, gender flipping is just a joke and it ends there. Mindset revolution is needed to end sexism, not sarcasm. There's also a thought from someone on those same lines. Marie-Lorna, have a listen to this video comment.
I think that using gender flipping to apply the bad behavior of men to women is counterproductive, but that using it as a tool to allow men to express the better qualities of women and vice versa is beneficial for the evolution of society. I'm therefore against the video oppressed majority. The GQ spoof I think is harmless, although I believe it threatens the acceptance of the power of female sexuality, which, when respected and not exploited, is a fundamentally important aspect of our culture.
So Marie-Lorna, in that video comment, he is pitting you against the GQ spread, but I want your thoughts on what he said.
I understand. I would hope we would only have to show the best qualities of men and the best qualities of women and exchange them to make the world better. But I think it's a little naive. I think what works, it's what is shocking when you're shocked by an image, a situation. When you change the perspective and the perspective is shocking, this is when you start to think, to rethink the situation.
And I think, I think it's quite easy to say that these things are jokes and they don't actually help on their own. But the fact is, I don't know, if I look personally at my newsfeed on Facebook every day, I'm reading a lot more about, about women's rights. I'm reading a lot more about people getting behind these sorts of things. It feels like it's in the public sphere a lot more, and I'm sure that these things are, you know, as they add up, and all the actual, you know, things that help with sexism, like changes to legislation and employment and people, you know, allowing women higher positions in the workplace and more, you know, I know in Australia now, like, women are making up the majority of university students and they're smashing all the grades and they're, you know, getting great jobs in Australia. And I think that these things are changing, and that it does feel like there's a wider awareness of the fact that this inequality has existed for so long.
Sure. Let me just... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add, you know, when we talk about beauty and the media, I mean, the media is really dictating what is beautiful to us. You know, I think someone mentioned before that, you know, everybody has their own preference. But even when we talk about sex, for instance, and we say sex sells, it's a very narrow definition or vision of what sex is, you know. And to me, it seems more like what the media is doing is presenting sexism, and that what really sells is separating men and women into, you know, boxes, limiting them, and then telling us that that's beauty or that that's sex, you know. But I think what's so great about these videos and these online campaigns is that previously marginalized voices, those who have been limited, are able to create their own kind of narratives through social media, through the internet. And we're starting to see that, you know, sexism isn't how people want to be sold to, you know, and there are other alternatives. And I think increasingly the media is responding to that, and I think they're recognizing that when you treat people more like human beings, you actually get their attention. I hope that that's the change that's happening.
And Ron, it's like you read the thoughts of this next person who just sent us this tweet. Charlie says, who could forget that these people are people, the people in the ads? And that references something that your organization uses, a hashtag that we see a lot, not buying it. This is Becca. She tweets in signage for a store in the US for sale. And you can see here the woman appears naked. The man has a shirt on. They're selling the same thing. The sale is the same price, but they're using that hashtag, not buying it. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, not buying it is a hashtag. It's been around for a couple of years, and it's actually an app now on iPhone too. And people use it to call out the media for using sexism to sell. And we've seen it be very effective. Not only just last week, we helped pressure Veet, which is kind of a hair removal brand. They had an ad in America where they kind of said that women who grew any hair on their bodies or who had any hair were at risk of becoming men. And within 3 days, using that hashtag, people kind of told Veet, hey, I'm not buying it, your ad's sexist, and they actually had to pull down the ad. And previously, they've used it to challenge Super Bowl ads, like companies like GoDaddy, which have become famous during the Super Bowl in America, using sexism and objectification of women to sell their products. And increasingly, you're seeing like thousands and thousands of people talking back and actually creating real change. I mean, GoDaddy this year, not only did they say that they read all those tweets, they actually changed their advertising strategy in response to it, and yeah, it's very inspiring.
So Imran, would you hate us if we played that Veet advert? It's very short. It's actually quite funny, and I know it's been pulled, but not today on the stream. Malika Bilal.
Exactly.
Roll that ad.
This is one version of that ad.
Okay.
Have a look at this.
I shaved yesterday. Don't risk dudeness.
Okay, so you have so much hair, you're going to turn into a big guy with a green dress. That's extreme advertising. Jatindra, what do you make of that?
Oh gosh, I don't think it's quite extreme in my perspective. I think humor is a great way of engaging people and initiating change. I did actually want to comment on something that was just said earlier, though, with regards to sexiness. You know, I think ultimately the not buying it idea is really more around authenticity and whether whether your brands are actually being authentic versus whether they're being sexy or not. You know, there can be something incredibly authentic about, you know, a traditionally sexy woman or a woman that is stereotypically considered to be beautiful, as there can be about a man with a six-pack. So I think we have to be careful not to go the other way as well and start, you know, deeming them inhuman.
All right, Jatindra, you just made Imran laugh. Imran, why were you laughing?
Oh no, I just wanted to clarify and say that, you know, sexy itself, and I'm not saying that sexy is what's, wrong. It's particularly the way we define sexy in such a narrow way, you know. And so, you know, the traditional definitions of sexy are still valuable to us, but people can be sexy for all different kinds of reasons. And you know, even when we depict the opposite of sexy in some of these ads, quote unquote, the opposite of sexy, it's often men with, you know, who look a certain way. And I want to just challenge whether or not that is actually the opposite of sexy. You know, the humor there is supposed to be that these men are not sexy, right? Or these men are not attractive, but those men are attractive. You know, those men can be sexy. You know, and I think that's what's so important, is reflecting the diversity of human experience in life, and that we're all, you know, worth being appreciated and valuable, and we can all be sexy, and we can all
that's
you know,
an interesting thing too, you know.
Yeah, go ahead, Jatinder, go ahead.
I would agree with that. I think that a lot of the marketing, when it refers to sexiness, is not just referring to the visual aspects. It's actually referring to, you know, a sense of feeling, an inner feeling. So when we look at Victoria's Secret, for example, those women feel enormously sexy. You know, they look sexy as well, but really what's selling is the fact that they really do feel that they're, you know, that they're sexy women. So I think it does go somewhat beyond the visual aspect, and I think we have to look into that too. Dove does a great example of showing how women are enormously beautiful and sexy, regardless of their, you know, their body shapes. But the sexy conversation is a much bigger conversation. It's not just about how somebody looks. It's about how you actually feel.
It's a bigger conversation, but you know what's interesting, and Nick and Christian, I want to bring you in on this, because there's a line between deciding what's sexy, and then our community says deciding what is sexist, and that differs from place to place. So you're in Australia, I'm here in the US. I'd like to get your thoughts on this video comment. Have a listen.
Sexism trivializes the needs and desires of people based on a biological distinction, which has no basis in reality. When women in Australia who are abused and told that they have a victim mentality, that is sexism. When women in Saudi Arabia are told they can't drive, that is sexism. When you feel unsafe in public because of the glares and catcalls of passerbys who believe it is their right to harass you in public, that is sexism.
So Nick and Christian, he mentions women, he mentions examples from around the world, but as we know, it's not even just women, men can face this as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was just about to say, you know, the other way of looking at this situation, and depends on how you know, it depends on which way you look at it, and this would be a question for the other guys too, is like, the other way is like, is it such a weird thing to see men in these situations because men are under-sexualized in comparison to the way that women are over-sexualized? Like, is it you know, is it maybe that interviewers don't press men with the same kinds of questions, and that men aren't posed in the same kinds of shapes? Or, and then, you know, I suppose, why is that? Is it that women don't want to sexualize men in the same way that men want to sexualize women? Or is it just that it's not as aesthetically pleasing to have a really hairy chest and man nipples and hairy bum cracks in magazines? I don't know.
Nick, what did you say? Because you're talking in stereo there. Share it with us again.
Right, oh no, I just said hairy bums aren't as cute. That's as deep as I get.
Okay. All right, so listen, this conversation...
Further, though, to what that video comment just said, I think he nailed a really elemental point, is before the fact that we're male or female, we're actually human beings.
Right.
And gender is, for someone to kind of play too heavily onto gender is understandable, but it's really, it can be dumb-ish, you know, like, because we're all humans.
All right. So Nick, you got the last word in this part of the main show. We have Nick Bosher on the show, Christian Van Vuven. We have Marie Lorna Van Consen and Imran Siddiqui and Jatinder Seda. They are going to be with us in the post show. I'm taking them all online, so you will see them in just a moment. But let me tell you about the next show before we do that. How important is race balance on sports teams? Or is the talent the only thing that matters? We look at the changes to racial quotas in South African sports teams. That is another discussion for another day, but stay with us. The post show is next at stream.aljazeera.com. If you want to be part of that conversation, just tweet us at #AJStream. Until then, we'll see you online. Thanks for watching. Hello again, I'm Femi OK, and you're in the Stream's online post show. We're talking about gender flipping and sexism, so let's get right back to it. Now, I have noticed, I made an observation, every time that Imran has a thought, he strokes his beard. Did I get that right, Imran?
I don't know, I hope not.
I only just met you, but I was like, he has many, many thoughts to contribute because he's stroking his beard. Do you know one of the things I really thought was important in what you do, what your organisation does, is that you try and unpack gender stereotypes because you see them as being quite damaging. I want to talk about the impact, not just on women, but also on men and on kids as well. Help us do that.
Yeah, you know, we made a film in 2011 called Misrepresentation, and we looked particularly at how stereotypes of women and girls in the media were impacting real life experiences for women and girls. So for instance, you know, when only 15% of Hollywood films have protagonists which are women, that impacts the fact that only 20% of the US Congress is women, you know, and so we see real world impacts, you know, because nowadays teenagers consume around 10 hours of media a day, you know, from TV to the internet to everything, and within all those places, the way women are predominantly portrayed is being valued for their youth, beauty, and sexuality. And at the same time, you know, something we also look at is, well, how are men and boys portrayed in the media, and how are men and boys taught to think of themselves? Not only how are they taught to think about women and girls, but, you know, we teach boys not to express themselves. We teach boys not to be emotional. And in our next film, The Mask You Live In, we look into like the real world impact when boys grow into men who value aggression over compassion, or who value, you know, dominance over listening. You know, and I think these are all connected, you know, because at the end of the day, we're trying to put people into extreme stereotypes, into extreme boxes, and what's missing is kind of cooperation, kind of, you know, working together to better humanity and society, and these barriers that society puts up in front of us, not only gender, but gender plus race, gender plus class, gender plus, you know, sexual orientation and circumstance. These are all ways in which we are limited from reaching full human potential. And so I think that's what we're really aiming at, is remove the barriers and let people be who they want to be.
Sure.
I think
Go ahead.
Sandra, I just think in the world that we've created, there is such significance on material things. Obviously, like our cities are built of a huge and overbearing, and there's such significance on our physical beauty and so on and so forth. And I think there's inherent insanity to over-significance of that point. And I think that's what caused a lot of this. I mean, we're not necessarily taught from a young age to acknowledge the permanence and infinites of our spiritual capacity, maybe, you know? And there's sustainability in that. And there's not sustainability in a body that's going to get old and smelly and probably, you know, die.
I thought I thought one of the things Imran was saying that I've thought about for a while as well is, like, you know, young kids, you got girls play with Barbie dolls, and the Barbie has got this impossible figure, you know, to maintain, and young guys play with He-Man toys, and He-Man carries a sword and is built like a brick house and can bench press 200 kilograms.
I love talking to Australia. It's a special kind of language that I haven't heard for a long time. A brick restroom, I do believe the translation might be.
Sorry about
it's all right. I speak Aussie.
Well, speaking of the toys that children are socialized perhaps to play with, I played with Barbies when I was younger, and I didn't see anything wrong with that. But I like that now there are other options. And on Twitter here, Oreba tweets in her thoughts on that. She says that judging from her own sons, she thinks that sexism in the media has a big impact. She says that her sons pick up sexist views from outside of my home, i.e. pink is for girls, and she says it mainly comes from the media. So Femi, I know a little bit earlier you were mentioning one of your favorite commercials.
One of my favorite commercials is Goldie Blox, which is basically a toy, an engineering toy for little girls, and it basically gender flips the whole idea that little girls should have dolls and pink and whatever. The little girls can build stuff and grow up to be pretty awesome engineers. Have a look at this. So this is Goldie Blox, and this made quite a stir. It went viral, and you see the girls here. They're making stuff, they're building stuff, and it doesn't have to be all dolls. I'm just wondering, Jatindra, though, I mean, this is a really serious conversation, and it's also a really fun conversation as well. Do you think any of this ever gets through to the advertisers? Do you think they take this on board?
I think they do, and I think ultimately our new generation, the millennials generation, is taking it on board too. You know, their views on gender and you know, what they want to be when they grow up, and what roles and jobs they want to have, and how they socialize are all very different. I mean, the lines are becoming more and more blurred. So we're definitely heading in the right direction in that sense.
How do you know that? What backs that up?
We see that through statistics. We see in terms of, you know, the professions that, you know, boys and girls are choosing to go into are changing. We see how they're choosing to socialize together. They're now choosing to socialize more in groups versus one-on-one. You know, we're seeing how the expectations of whether, you know, a guy should stay at home and look after a child versus a girl doing that are two very, you know, are very different from previous generations. So we're actually seeing that statistically now in research.
Right.
You know, people's minds are changing. So absolutely.
So, Marie-Lorna, if you look back, say, let's take us back to the 1950s and we looked at an ad then, the woman would be a housewife, she'd have beautiful coiffured hair, her nails would be done, she'd be getting dinner ready for her husband, she wouldn't have a job. I mean, advertising has evolved and changed over the years. Where do you feel the evolution is happening right now?
Regarding advertising, I don't know if I'm able to speak, but
or the images that we're getting as a society, as a community.
The objects we use as a children. I remember when I was little, I was playing with the boys, and I really wanted to use the garage and all the tools they were using, but we always give me Barbie as you said. And today I feel like children exchange more their toys. I don't know if it's in advertising of movies, or I don't know how to explain it, but I can see that the babies of my friends now, they exchange all the time their toys, and the girls are playing with the tools, and I've seen a boy playing with a Barbie not before last week. Little Felix, he was playing with the doll of his sister, and for the parents there was no problem at all, and everybody thought it was great. So I don't know if it answers the question.
I would have loved to have seen that.
I think it has changed. I think so.
Yeah. What does evolution look like for you, Imran, when we're talking about these gender stereotypes and the way we see them in popular culture?
You know, it's a little bit of both in terms of some things are getting better. You know, you see, as we mentioned before, commercials like Dove, where they're kind of showing women being valued for more than their beauty, are very popular. At the same time, you know, the Veet thing just happened last week. We had another commercial during the Mad Men premiere here in America where they said basically real men drink bourbon. You know, those kinds of things are still very prevalent. I think what's particularly changing, though, is that women, and particularly women of color, have a voice online and are able to use things like hashtags to talk back. And that really has influenced slowly the media, and even if it's just these kind of online viral videos, you know, I think that's going to start to seep into the mainstream as well. Like Goldie Blox, that was aired during the Super Bowl, actually. So you know, that was seen by millions.
I'm going to show the Dove ad because Jatinda, you mentioned this. You mentioned Victoria's Secrets, but you also mentioned the Dove ad, which I also personally happen to love. So let me just play a little bit because it gives you a sense of how advertisers can really appeal to women without gender stereotypes. Have a look at this.
I should be more grateful of my natural beauty. It impacts the choices and the friends that we make, the jobs we apply for, how we treat our children. It impacts everything. It couldn't be more critical to your happiness.
See, that is a gorgeous ad, and it just plays on how we really look and how gorgeous we really are on a good day for me. Malika Bilal, you're scrolling through. Yeah, go ahead, Jatinda. Go ahead.
Sorry, it truly is, and I just wanted to say that, you know, the reason why the Dove ad is so great is that it really transcends a conversation of how somebody looks. And it talks about, you know, self-esteem and ultimately beauty being about how you feel. And the Dove patches in particular is a great kind of placebo experiment they did when they gave these patches, these beauty patches to women. And then it was revealed after that, really, there was nothing in there. So I think that is the underlying issue here. And sometimes it's easy to get lost in the kind of more superficiality of what is actually being shown and to kind of pinpoint that, whereas you've got to get to the underlying cause. You know, self-esteem And the reasons why a lot of the girls today and guys out there are having low self-esteem is for a plethora of other reasons, where it goes into biochemical, the foods they're eating, and so many other issues beyond just the visual imagery that is being shown to them.
So it might not be Victoria's Secret's ads, it might be something else going on in the life, right?
Right. Well, Imran, you heard Jitendra say we have to get to the underlying issue. We have a Facebook comment here from someone who mentions what he thinks that underlying issue is. Liam writes in that most of the gender-flipped images of men, he says, wouldn't be out of place in magazines targeted at women. Perhaps the bigger issue is body image for both. Of course, that's a whole other show, Imran, but quickly, do you think that body image plays into this?
That is a whole show.
Yeah, no, I
2 minutes before we wrap up, Malika Bilal.
I think he can do it. Imran, can you do it?
Yeah, I do think body image is connected to the images we see, you know, because the images we see tell us what we're supposed to look like, or what is beautiful, what is the ideal, what do ideal bodies look like? And there's a stat that we found that said the average American teenage girl, after spending just 3 minutes with a fashion magazine, reports feeling depressed, guilty, and shameful about herself. And that relates to her body image and what she thinks of her, how she defines beauty for herself. So I do think that media and these ads and the images that we show our young people are so important, and that when we gender flip, we're at least creating a conversation, a way of questioning the standard. And I think that's important. We have to continue to question the status quo.
Sure. So, Imran, thank you. Yeah, go ahead. Just very quickly.
I was just going to say, that's the other thing about the internet, right, is in many ways it's brought us all together. So we've got empathy for different groups and different people around the world. But we also have this window into other people's lives. So we're constantly watching through our Facebook feeds and Twitter these other people who we think are happier than we are and who we think are more beautiful than we are. And that impacts a lot of people on an individual level. And I think like things like anxiety and depression and you know, I know youth suicide in Australia has become a huge problem because every kid's got the internet in their home and they can't escape online bullying and stuff like that. But I think that's all, you know, all that stuff's connected.
That's Bondi Hipster Christian Van Buren. I'm going to leave you with his picture here on my laptop as I thank all of the rest of our guests. I'm glad that we brought you all together for this episode of the stream. So Christian and Nick and Marie Lorna, Jitendra and Imran, thank you for being part of the conversation. We really enjoyed your company. Let me tell you about our next show. How important is race balance on sports teams? Or is talent the only thing that matters? We'll look at the changes in racial quotas in South African sports. Until then, we'll see you online. Great to be back. See you soon.